Hello. So recently, a guy in a chat on a game developer's stream asked how one does animations for a game. And now I'm not thinking that I can show you how to do really great, like gorgeous looking game graphics, but I thought I'd show you the basics because if you're a programmer and you want to make a game, you need some sort of placeholder graphics, and you need to know like what your graphics artist, if you ever are lucky enough to hire one, um, will need from you, and what you will have to tell them how to make the graphics. So for this purpose, I'm going to do a little demo with just a simple stick figure-like character, and just going to do a little walk cycle. So it's nothing big and complicated, and of course, doing graphics is a lot of work. And but I thought I'll just show how you can make pretty simple graphics, and then you can always later have them done by a professional if you don't want to put in the work to learn, or just don't have the time, to learn to make bigger graphics. Because really, the most important thing about learning how to draw is essentially just practicing it. And if you're already practicing programming, you don't have the time to practice drawing, and the other way around. So all those people that you see that are amazing artists probably weren't aren't people who just were born one day and could do awesome drawings, but rather they probably, like their parents encouraged them to draw, and they just kept doing it and kept doing it. And when they were thinking about what they should do, they thought, well, I've been doing this, it's fun. I've memorized all the important things of drawing so well, um, that it isn't really much effort for me, and that I could just think of something and draw it, and that's why it looks so easy for them. And also, I mean, it's still effort for them because, of course, if you do this professional, you're going to put your heart into it, and you're going to try to be better every time. So okay, so to draw, you don't really need anything special for drawings except some sort of drawing application. I'm going to demo this on a Windows machine simply because I'm using my Mac for recording. Um, but you could also do this on a Mac, but most of you will probably have a Windows machine, so just statistically it's easier. So what do you need? Well, you just need a drawing application that lets you do several frames and view them either like shortly after one another or on top of each other, so you can see whether your animation works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a free software that is called Paint.net. It's actually not on the website paint.net. That's some completely different. I think they sell actual like paint for your wall. Um, it's on getpaint.net, so watch out for that. And generally, this is a website. It's a free open source project. They can't really afford the server hosting, so they have to run a lot of ads, and some of those ads are really misleading. Right now, this screen is actually fairly good, but usually they have lots of ads like this one, or at least the last time I visited it, that say get latest version, which are actually ads. You can see that with that ad choices logo over here, that it's actually an ad. Um, and then they have like something else that looks like an advertisement. So don't click those buttons, they're wrong. Go here, up here in the menu, click download, and it'll tell you again, don't click this button, scroll down past the ad, and it will say here, download now. And sadly, this also kind of looks like an ad. Um, so click that one, and now you can click up here, free download now. And that will actually show you a zip file. This link was on another spot as well, but I had the impression that I think the last time I clicked that one, it just went to the previous page. So you'll have to figure out, like, but be a little smart and don't go to random pages. Like, even that is .pdn is what they use to host their downloads. So it can be really misleading. I'm hoping I'm not downloading a virus. Well, I already did and installed it because I didn't want you to wait. So just click here, you'll get a zip file that unzips, you get an installer, and you install paint.net. Now when paint.net comes up, it looks something like this. Um, Again, the only thing here we really need is we need some spot to paint in, So you'll probably get a bigger white square. I already went in here to image and canvas size and changed the canvas size to 32 by 32 pixels. The number is not really important. 32 is what I'm used to from the old days when I started out. An icon was exactly 32 by 32 pixels. So that's big enough that you can actually put a nice image into it, but still small enough that you don't have to be too precise. This is the same trick that, for example, comic artists use. Um, it's that you usually draw bigger than you need the graphic in the end. And during the process of scaling down, that loss of precision removes some of the insecurities in your lines um, like if the line is not quite straight or something, um, or like the two steps of the animation don't quite match, through that loss of precision that happens when scaling the picture down, um, it covers all those little mistakes. So that's really, nobody's perfect. It's just that's the small trick. So we've set the image canvas size to 32 by 32. We've got a tiny little square that is white. Now the thing is, we don't really want white. We want our picture to be empty. So how we're going to do that? We're going to pick the rectangle select tool, and we're going to select everything. You could just start dragging outside and it'll only select inside. And now we can do edit, erase selection. And now you get a checkerboard pattern, which is what most drawing programs since Photoshop use to indicate that this is transparent. And now we have this tiny picture and it's transparent. And so now let's zoom in a little so we get a bigger one. You see the checkerboard stays the same size. And now we just use this pencil tool here. Make sure you have a primary color that makes sense for whatever you want to draw. I'm just going to go with black and white for now because really that's all I got to show you. And you have a layer. Right now this layer is called background. You can add more layers on top of it later for the different animation frames. So let's start out, with just like drawing a head, having a body, and then hips, and then maybe, I don't know, like a leg. Now you get a little preview here, so you kind of see how it turns out, And so give the character two arms. So that's essentially all. Although we want the character to walk sideways, right? So I probably should go with sideways. So let's get rid of that. Don't worry, we didn't put much work in it. So here's one thing. If you feel that you can't even do that, since you have several layers in this program, what you can do here is you can just go on the internet and find a movie. For example, a GIF of a movie is good because it has very few frames. Take that and grab individual frames out of it and just paste them in here, and then trace the character on that frame. So if you find an animation of someone walking sideways. So it shouldn't be an actual drawing that someone did or a vector render or something like that, because then it's too easy to kind of end up in the area of plagiarism. Really, you want an actual photo, and then you just trace like a circle for the head and smaller circles. So let's do that. You'll have a head, and you'll maybe have a body, something like this. And then you'll have one leg and another leg. It doesn't have to be very good. And then you put a foot next to it and another one. Now I'm gonna leave a bit free here just so you can see that they're two different ones. We could just do this with colors actually. So let's pick this gray and make the rear foot something like this. You know, you have 2 feet essentially. And you can have, I don't know, an arm. Yeah, let's do this with colors. It's probably easier that way. So, I don't know, orange head. We're going for a Simpsons vibe here. And you see, I don't have that many pixels. And I don't know, blue jeans is probably a good choice of pants. Okay, and maybe a little darker for the separation. Maybe even more dark. Something like that. Oh, this one. That'll do. Or maybe just give that leg a darker color. Something like that. You know, it doesn't have to be too good. Really, the only thing we're doing here is caring about that we have an example animation that we can use. So we have a little blue land group guy. That might not be quite as good. Okay, so now you have this character, and now how do we make this character walk? Well, you make another layer. Actually, maybe. No, wait. How does this? I guess here. Yeah, right. Okay, sorry. So let's delete that one again. So now we have a copy of the layer, and now I can turn the one off that I don't want. And now what you can do is, so leave that one, you have the original image, and now you take the new image and edit it. So, for example, I want the character to walk a little. Actually, I think I did a mistake on the first one, so let's fix that first, and we can take advantage of that for the second one. So, this, oops, undo. So just like turning on individual pixels is really all we need to do. So we have regular clown's eyes feet now, but this one should probably be a little farther back. So we switch to the move tool and just, oh, come on, now it works. So maybe let's do it like this. Turn off the selection. You can use the selection for clipping in this drawing program. It doesn't work in all of them. Okay, so the feet are kind of round at the start. That's kind of what we want. And you see like that little preview, it looks like a little person. That's fine. So, okay, you have these feet. And now what you essentially just want to do is you want the character to move. Now there's 2 ways to make a character move in a game. And you have to know like how many pixels essentially your character will be moving when you push to the right, you know, like to do one step. And also, yeah. So what you're going to do here is you're going to find a so when you make the character move, you just move parts of it. So let's get rid of that again. Duplicate that once more, hide the old one. And in the new one, what we'll do is just we'll take apart the character. In this case, since it's very pixelated, it's not that hard. For bigger images, that can get harder. So we've moved it over by 1 pixel now. Let's see. of have to manage with the keyboard here. Okay, let's just move it and leave it at that. Okay, so I'm just moving it over there, and I'm going to draw the newly exposed part in the right color. So if you now look at the frames, like if you switch that, it kind of seems to be taking the foot forward. So it's not quite as easy to see, like you have the little thumbnail over here. But the problem is that for a second we see like both frames at the same time, and I'm not fast enough at clicking. But that's essentially what you can do. And you can kind of see that, yeah, that works. And so what you're doing is essentially you're just moving your character. So you're going here and just moving that leg forward. Of course, you can fix it up a little. You know, you can go like, okay, this leg should probably, this one should probably, you know, like be bent a little. So let's make some steps into it. Why doesn't that work? Okay, now. Things like that, or you can use the eraser tool or whatever, you know, so that it still looks like the leg was stretching out. And then you just like shift parts over, and since it's so small, it will actually kind of look like it's stretched out and diagonal. So that's really all you do. And now essentially the continuation of the animation would just, since you have only 32 pixels to work with, you know, you just move this leg forward 3 pixels, and then go and move, and maybe if it seems weird, move forward the body a little, because that's what you usually do when walking. You stretch out one leg, and while setting it down, you tilt forward, so your body kind of stays in the middle over the legs, and so is moved forward, of course, for a little bit by that step, but not immediately, but like for like half of the pixel steps that you do with the leg, you move the upper body forward as well. And of course, then, once that leg is stretched out, you kind of, so once this leg is stretched out, I'm showing this on my screen where you can't see it. Once this leg is stretched out, you kind of tilt this leg afterwards and move the body a little more. And so in the end, you'll be at a point where this leg is straight again and this one is stretched out. But this essentially stays in the same spot. So move one leg forward a little, then move the whole body so that leg is straight, and then take the leg that is stretched out and move it straight under you again. So the last frame is essentially identical to the first frame. Of course, that's not really how humans walk. That's half of how humans walk, because that means, you know, the left leg is moved forward and then the right leg is pulled afterwards. But what we usually do is we don't just pull the right leg after, we then move the right leg forward and pull the left leg after. So we alternate between the legs, of course. We don't always do left leg forward, pull right leg. Left leg forward, pull right leg to follow. That's how zombies walk, you know? Or people with a limp, maybe. So essentially you do the same steps, but you do it twice. And but what you might notice here, what I'm doing here is I'm moving this character inside this frame. So this is why I need enough room to make this character walk forward and then end up straight again somewhere here over on the right. Once I've done that, I count the pixels between this edge in the first frame and this edge in the last frame. And that might be, you know, like 8 or 16 pixels maybe. And so when I run this animation, I leave my character in the same spot and run the frames to the first half of the animation. And then I switch back to the first frame where it's straight in the middle, and at the same time I move the character forward by that many pixels that the character has moved inside this box. And that way, your character takes a step forward, and then you can just rerun the animation. Or you can have two animations that are roughly identical, just that either this leg or this leg is pulled forward. You can even just do that, by copying the same animation, replacing the colors, and fixing up the middle where they overlap. So in this case, this leg would always be in front of the other, but in this case, the other leg is in the back. This leg is in the back, obviously. So this one gets exposed, whereas in the other one, you always see the whole foot on that side, something like that. But that's really all you do. There is not that much work. And the nice thing is that since you're doing it in very few pixels, it's not that complicated to do. And you only have to, since that character moves about 8 pixels or something in one step, so that means you get about 16 frames to have the character take 2 steps forward, once with the right and once with the left leg. That's really all there is to it. Keeping track of what is the middle of my frame, how far did the animation walk inside my frame, and then resetting so it's all in the middle again. In some game engines, they actually let you draw whatever drawing you give, and then let you give a marker that says, okay, this is the middle of my character. So as your character steps forward, you can actually do it for each individual step, and then just move the marker backwards, and that way your character will appear to be moving forwards. And then, since if you always move the marker a little as your character walks, you can of course also move the character in the game for each step. So that's also something you can do. You can say every second step I move 1 pixel, because of course when this leg is first stretched out, the character itself didn't really move yet. Only in the second animation frame, the character will tilt a little bit forward, or maybe even in the third or fourth, first you stretch out the leg, and then as you put it down, the character tilts forward, and that's when it would move. So you don't constantly move. You lift your leg first, and that's the second or two for which you don't move. Then you put your leg down, and as you do that, your body moves forward. And then once you're standing there, you have moved. But actual movement when someone walks is jerky. So that's essentially what you pay attention for. So that's really what you do. You just go through these frames. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to demo that, because that's really all I wanted to tell you. You can do a really simple character, and I could have gone and given this character eyes and hair or whatever. You can also, it's usually easier to have a character started and just do the walk cycle, and then copy it and just move around the parts. You can, of course, also use a vector drawing program for this, and then you might even be able to, model the upper leg as one oval and the lower leg as another oval, and the foot as a half circle or whatever, or a polygon or whatever that looks more foot-shaped. And then you can just shift them a little, export them as a PNG or something, and do the next frame. That might make it even easier. But the trick is kind of, when you start out, just make small frames and few frames. That's okay. But keep track of where the center of gravity, the middle of your character, is, so you can you can move the frame, because when your game only knows this is a rectangular box of pixels, it doesn't really know anything. So you have to tell it somewhere where the middle of your character is, because the actual character position in this frame will shift slightly by a pixel or two. And since when you can't just have this box constantly move 1 pixel forward with each frame if you want to move 8 pixel in one step or something, because that's not how humans walk. Humans always go step forward, step forward. It's this bouncing and shaking that you see for example, in first-person shooters. You have this bobbing motion that the camera does to simulate that you're actually not constantly walking forward, but like it's always one step and the next. It happens so quickly after each other that it approximates forward motion, just like an animation is not really constant motion, but just small steps that are so fast that we can barely tell anymore that it's not a movement, but just individual frames flashing. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. I could probably just go on doing the animation, but I'm kind of too lazy. Um, if that's a problem, let me know, and maybe I'll sit down and try to finish this one. But yeah, you see, it's not really that hard. I mean, this guy, if you look at the mini pictures here or here, this character doesn't really look like much and is tiny, but it's placeholder graphics for now, and you can always add more detail later or something, or you can make a slightly bigger version and then do more frames or something. But of course, if you make it this small, you don't really have enough room to make the knee obviously visible. So you don't have to bother about bending the knee correctly or something. It's just the character is so short that it's as if the character was at a distance. So that's a good way to cover your any lack of development of artistic skill. So I hope that was helpful. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you have questions or something. We shall see. Bye bye.